Earth had always been alone in the universe, or so they thought. For centuries, humans gazed at the stars and wondered if other intelligent life existed. They built powerful telescopes, sent robotic probes to distant planets, and listened carefully for any signals from the cosmos. But the stars remained silent, and humanity continued to develop in isolation, until the day the signals arrived. It was a regular Tuesday at the Global Space Monitoring Station when Alan Bennett noticed something unusual in the data stream. Strange pulses of energy from the direction of Alpha Centauri that didn't match any known astronomical phenomenon. At first, he thought it was equipment failure. Then he realized he was looking at artificial signals, the first confirmed evidence of intelligent alien life. Within hours, the brightest minds on Earth were analyzing the transmissions. It took weeks to decode even the basic elements, but what they discovered shocked everyone. The signals weren't a greeting or an invitation. They were desperate calls for help. Two massive civilizations were locked in a devastating war. The Vordari Empire, ruthless and expansionist, was systematically destroying the peaceful Centauri alliance. The messages contained horrifying details of planets scorched, billions dead, and a once great civilization on the brink of extinction. "This isn't just a message," said Dr. Kate Wilson, lead linguist for the decryption team. "It's a distress call. They're asking for help from anyone who can hear them." Most world leaders laughed at the idea. Earth had barely established a permanent moon base. What could humans possibly do against advanced alien empires fighting across multiple star systems? But Commander Amanda Miller of the United Earth Defense Force saw something no one else did: an opportunity. For decades, Earth had been developing military technology in secret, preparing for the possibility of hostile first contact. Experimental propulsion systems, advanced weapons platforms, and revolutionary defense systems, all untested in real combat, but theoretically beyond anything humans had publicly revealed. "We've been preparing for this moment without knowing it," Miller told the United Nations Security Council. "The Centauri don't know what we're capable of. Neither do the Vordari. Our technology might be exactly what's needed to turn the tide." After heated debate, the Council approved her plan. The 7 most advanced ships in Earth's secret fleet would journey to Centauri space. It was humanity's first interstellar mission, and potentially its last if they failed. Commander Miller stood on the bridge of the USV Intrepid, watching Earth shrink to a pale blue dot on the view screen. Her second-in-command, Major Frank Davis, looked nervous as the experimental FTL drive powered up. "You really think we can make a difference?" Davis asked quietly. Miller nodded. "The Centauri have been fighting a conventional war against an enemy that knows all their tactics. We're bringing something new to the battlefield. 300 soldiers against an empire that spans dozens of star systems." Davis shook his head. "Those are impossible odds." "The best kind," Miller replied with a hint of a smile. "They won't see us coming." As the Intrepid and its 6 sister ships accelerated beyond the speed of light, Miller studied the intelligence reports one more time. The Centauri were losing ground every day. Their major shipyards had been destroyed, their largest colonies fallen. According to their distress calls, they had perhaps 3 months before total defeat. Earth's fleet would arrive in 2. It would be just enough time to implement Miller's plan, a strategy so unconventional that neither the Centauri nor the Vordari could possibly anticipate it. Humanity was late to this war, but they were bringing a surprise that would change the course of galactic history forever. The Earth fleet emerged from FTL travel at the edge of Centauri space. 7 ships against an empire that controlled thousands. The crew of the USV Intrepid stared in wonder at the alien stars displayed on the main view screen. "No sign of Vordari activity in this sector," reported Lieutenant Jack Howard from the sensor station. "But I'm detecting a Centauri outpost on the 3rd planet of this system." Commander Miller nodded. "Open communications channel. Let's introduce ourselves." The screen flickered to show a blue-skinned humanoid with large silver eyes. The alien jumped back in shock when it saw the human faces. "Impossible. The alien said in a halting voice. The translation software converted its musical language into English. You are human, from Earth. This is Commander Amanda Miller of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call and have come to offer assistance. The alien blinked rapidly. I am Ambassador Zinn of the Centauri Alliance. We sent thousands of distress signals across the galaxy. Never did we imagine Earth would respond. Your species has barely left its solar system. Major Davis exchanged glances with Miller. The Centauri had been monitoring Earth more closely than they realized. We've kept some of our advancements quiet, Miller said. We request permission to dock at your outpost. 3 hours later, Miller and her command team stood in a vast circular chamber aboard the Centauri station. Ambassador Zinn led them through corridors filled with curious aliens who stopped to stare at the humans. Your arrival is unexpected, Zinn explained. Most civilizations take centuries after discovering space travel before achieving interstellar flight. Your species was thought to be primitive, still arguing about climate change and fighting among yourselves. We're good at keeping secrets, Lieutenant Howard said, and we work well under pressure. Zinn stopped abruptly. Why would you come? This is not your war. The Vordari are the most feared military force in this arm of the galaxy. They have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Because you asked for help, Miller said simply, and because Earth won't be safe if the Vordari continue expanding. Ambassador Zinn led them into a chamber where 5 Centauri officials sat around a crystalline table. The lead counselor, distinguished by elaborate silver markings on his blue skin, looked at the humans with obvious skepticism. These are the reinforcements. 7 small vessels with primitive technology. The counselor's tone made the translation unnecessary. We are losing dozens of warships daily. Miller stepped forward. We may not have numbers, but we have innovations your enemies haven't encountered. Sometimes a new approach is more valuable than raw firepower. The counselor was about to respond when alarms blared throughout the station. A young Centauri officer rushed into the chamber, panic clear in her movements. Vordari battle group detected. 3 heavy cruisers on direct approach. They found our hidden outpost. The counselor rose. Evacuate immediately. We cannot defend against. Let us help, Miller interrupted. Allow our ships to engage. Consider it a demonstration. Before the Centauri could respond, the station shook violently. The Vordari had opened fire. Miller tapped her communicator. All Earth vessels, defensive formation Delta. Deploy kinetic countermeasures. Let's show the Vordari what humans can do. Outside the station, the 7 Earth ships moved with startling speed, positioning themselves between the outpost and the incoming Vordari cruisers. The massive alien warships, black and red with pulsing energy weapons, approached confidently. The Centauri counselors watched on the chamber's display as the tiny Earth fleet faced overwhelming firepower. The lead Vordari ship fired a devastating energy beam that should have vaporized the USV Intrepid instantaneously. Instead, something unexpected happened, something that would change the course of the war. The brilliant beam of violet energy from the Vordari cruiser struck the USV Intrepid and split around it like water flowing around a stone. The Earth ship remained untouched. Impossible, gasped the Centauri Council leader. Their shields should have failed instantly. On the Intrepid's bridge, Commander Miller smiled. Countermeasures holding steady. Prepare main weapons. The 7 Earth vessels moved in perfect coordination, positioning themselves in a formation the Vordari had never encountered. The alien cruisers paused, seemingly confused by the unusual tactics. They're recalibrating their weapons, Lieutenant Howard reported. They don't understand what they're seeing. Chief Engineer Olivia Grant spoke through the comm system from the engine room. Our deflection system is working perfectly, Commander. The energy dispersion field is redirecting their weapons fire exactly as designed. This was Earth's first secret. They had developed technology that didn't stop energy weapons but redirected them. The Vordari, like the Centauri, had focused their military development on increasingly powerful energy-based attacks. No one had prepared for an enemy who could simply avoid them. The Vordari ships fired again, this time with all weapons. The energy beams bent around the Earth vessels, causing no damage. The Centauri watched in stunned silence as their most feared enemy failed to harm the small human fleet. "Now it's our turn," Miller ordered. "All ships, fire conventional weapons." What happened next astonished the Centauri even more. Instead of energy beams, the Earth ships launched physical projectiles, advanced missiles and railgun rounds that moved at incredible speeds. These simple objects passed right through the Vordari energy shields, which had been designed to stop energy attacks, not physical objects. The first Vordari cruiser shuddered as dozens of impacts tore through its hull. A second volley disabled its engines. The remaining 2 Vordari ships tried to retreat, but the Earth vessels pursued with surprising speed. Within minutes, all 3 Vordari cruisers were disabled. No Earth ship had suffered significant damage. Back at the Centauri outpost, the council chamber was silent. The lead counselor stared at Miller with new respect. "How is this possible? We have fought the Vordari for decades. Our best ships and weapons barely slow them down." Miller nodded to Chief Engineer Grant, who stepped forward. "Your civilizations focused on the wrong technologies," she explained. Both Centauri and Vordari developed increasingly powerful energy weapons and shields. But physical projectiles moving at extreme velocities can cause tremendous damage while bypassing energy shields completely. The counselor's silver eyes narrowed. "Why would we develop primitive projectile weapons when energy weapons are more advanced?" "Because advanced doesn't always mean better," Miller said. "Sometimes the simple solution is the most effective. Humans have a long history of asymmetric warfare, finding creative ways to defeat stronger opponents." Ambassador Zinn moved closer to the display showing the disabled Vordari ships. "You've done in minutes what our fleets couldn't accomplish in years." "This was a small engagement," Major Davis cautioned. "The Vordari will adapt. Next time will be harder." Miller turned to the Centauri Council. "We need to act quickly while we have surprise on our side. I've prepared a strategy that combines our technologies and tactics with your knowledge of Vordari movements." The lead counselor hesitated. "You expect us to place our survival in human hands. Your civilization is young, untested." Before Miller could respond, alarms sounded again. A Centauri officer rushed in with new reports. A massive Vordari fleet had just destroyed another Centauri colony. Billions more lives lost. The counselor's shoulders slumped. "We have little choice. What is your plan, Commander Miller?" Miller activated a holographic display showing star systems and fleet positions. "First, we need to protect your remaining shipyards. Then we go on the offensive." In a way the Vordari would never expect. The Human-Centauri alliance was born in that moment. Earth had arrived late to the war, but its unexpected approach to combat had changed everything. The real battle, however, was just beginning. The Centauri headquarters buzzed with activity as humans and aliens worked side by side. 1 week had passed since Earth's ships had defeated the Vordari cruisers, and the news had spread throughout the alliance. Hope, long absent, began to return. In the main laboratory, Dr. William Parker adjusted his glasses as he explained Earth's technological approach to a group of fascinated Centauri scientists. "The key was thinking differently," Parker said, pointing to the weapon schematics on the display. "When we detected your signals and learned about the war, we analyzed what little data we had on Vordari defenses. We realized something important. All your weapons are energy-based." The lead Centauri scientist, a slender female named Taylor, tilted her head. "Energy weapons are the pinnacle of military technology. All advanced species develop them." Parker smiled. "That's exactly why they were vulnerable. They prepared for what they expected." Meanwhile, Earth kept perfecting kinetic weapons alongside energy research. He displayed images of the railgun system that fired dense metal projectiles at incredible speeds. No energy signature to detect, no radiation to shield against, just pure physics. Their shields can't stop what they can't see coming. Across the station, Captain Daniel Cruz prepared for a more dangerous mission. Commander Miller had selected him to lead a small team into Vordari territory to gather intelligence on their main fleet movements. "This is a strictly volunteer mission," Cruz told the 4 humans, and 3 Centauri gathered in the briefing room. "We'll be using a modified Centauri scout ship with our deflection technology added. If we're discovered, there's no guarantee of rescue." Lieutenant Paul Wright, the team's weapons specialist, checked his gear. "How are we supposed to infiltrate their space? Won't they detect any ship approaching?" Cruz revealed a small device. "This is why Dr. Parker came along. This prototype masks our engine signatures to mimic Vordari auxiliaries. We'll pose as a supply transport." The Centauri pilot, Kivo, looked skeptical. "Vordari ships have genetic scanners. They'll know we're not their kind." "That's where this comes in," Cruz said, holding up another device. "Biosignature Scrambler. It can't fool a direct scan, but it will confuse their long-range sensors enough to get us close to their command station." The team departed 12 hours later, slipping away from the Alliance fleet and into the darkness of enemy territory. Meanwhile, Commander Miller met with the Joint Human-Centauri Strategic Council. The room had changed. No longer were the Centauri leaders dismissive of human input. They listened carefully as Miller outlined her broader strategy. "The Vordari succeeded because they attack in predictable patterns, overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers and firepower," she explained. "They've never needed to adapt because nothing challenged them, until now." She pointed to a star map showing recent Vordari movements. "They're already changing formation to counter our projectile weapons, but they're making a critical mistake." Major Davis highlighted a specific sector. "They're clustering their ships tighter for mutual protection. This actually makes them more vulnerable to our second phase of weapons." "What second phase?" asked Ambassador Zinn. Engineer Grant stepped forward, displaying schematics for a device unlike anything the Centauri had seen. "We call it the scatter mine. When deployed, it releases thousands of microscopic projectiles across a wide area. Against single targets, it's ineffective. Against tight formations, it would be devastating," finished the Centauri fleet commander. As they discussed deployment strategies, Cruz's team penetrated deeper into Vordari space. Their disguised ship passed through the outer defense perimeter unchallenged. "Approaching their secondary command node," reported Kivo from the pilot's seat. "Sensors are picking up unusual activity." Cruz studied the data. "They're gathering their forces, more ships than intelligence suggested." Through the view screen, they watched as hundreds of Vordari warships assembled around a massive space station. This wasn't just a fleet. It was an armada preparing for something big. "We need to get closer," Cruz decided. "The Alliance needs to know what they're planning." As their small ship edged nearer to the gathering Vordari forces, they didn't realize they were about to discover the secret that would change the entire course of the war. The Andromeda Nebula stretched across space like a vast, colorful cloud. Its swirling gases and newborn stars created a beautiful but dangerous battlefield. Under normal circumstances, no military commander would choose to fight here. The unpredictable radiation interfered with sensors, and the dense matter clouds could damage engines. But Lieutenant Laura Chen saw opportunity where others saw risk. "The nebula's properties are perfect for an ambush," Chen explained to the combined Earth-Centauri fleet commanders. "Our modified sensors can penetrate the gas clouds better than Vordari technology. We'll see them before they see us." Commander Miller studied the three-dimensional map of the nebula. "Captain Cruz's intelligence confirms the Vordari will pass through this sector on their way to attack the Centauri shipyards at Proxima. If we position our forces here, we can catch them by surprise." The Centauri officers looked unsure. Their species avoided nebulas whenever possible. "This plan requires perfect timing," worried Admiral Zev, the highest-ranking Centauri. "If the Vordari detect us before we're ready." "They won't," Miller assured him. We'll use the nebula's electromagnetic properties to mask our energy signatures. The same gases that interfere with sensors will hide our fleet. Tactical Officer Ryan Daniels pointed to specific locations in the nebula. We'll position Earth ships at these 4 points, with Centauri vessels here and here. When the Vordari enter this corridor, we close the trap from all sides. Despite their doubts, the Centauri agreed. They had seen enough of Earth's unconventional strategies to trust Miller's judgment. Within 24 hours, the Allied fleet moved into position inside the nebula. The wake was tense. Earth and Centauri ships powered down to minimal systems, hiding in the colorful gases. Communication was limited to short-burst transmissions to avoid detection. Hours passed with no sign of the enemy. On the bridge of the USV Intrepid, Miller stared at the nebula's shifting patterns displayed on the view screen. Status report. All ships in position, Major Davis confirmed. Scatter mines deployed at the designated coordinates. Lieutenant Howard suddenly straightened at his sensor station. Contact. Multiple Vordari signatures entering the nebula's outer boundary. Miller leaned forward. How many? At least 50 warships, Commander. Several heavy dreadnoughts among them. The Allied forces numbered only 32 vessels. The Vordari, as always, held the numerical advantage. But Miller had positioned her fleet perfectly. They're following the expected course, Daniels reported. Entering the corridor in 3 minutes. Miller opened a channel to all Allied ships. Prepare to engage on my signal. Remember the plan. Earth vessels target their lead ships with conventional weapons, while Centauri forces focus energy weapons on their rear guard. Don't deviate from your assigned targets. The massive Vordari fleet entered the nebula corridor, their black and red ships pushing confidently through the gases. Their sensors, hindered by the nebula, failed to detect the waiting ambush. They're in position, Howard whispered. Center of the kill zone. Miller nodded. All ships, engage. The battle erupted in explosive chaos. Earth ships suddenly powered up and launched their first salvo of railgun projectiles. The dense metal slugs tore through the lid Vordari vessels before they could raise shields. Simultaneously, Centauri cruisers emerged from hiding and fired brilliant beams of energy at the rear of the Vordari formation. Caught by surprise, the Vordari ships attempted to scatter, but the nebula's gases limited their maneuverability. As they tried to regroup into a defensive position, they triggered the scatter mines. Thousands of microscopic projectiles spread through space, penetrating shields and damaging critical systems on dozens of Vordari ships. Engines failed, weapons went offline, and communication systems died. It's working, Davis exclaimed as the tactical display showed multiple Vordari vessels disabled. The Vordari commander attempted to rally his forces, ordering his remaining ships to push forward, trying to break through the Earth vessels blocking their path. They're concentrating fire on our position, Howard warned as the Intrepid shuddered under enemy fire. Hold steady, Miller ordered. Draw them deeper. The battle raged for hours, neither side willing to retreat. For the first time in decades, the Vordari were facing an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm. Their familiar tactics failed against Miller's unconventional strategy. As the nebula's gases glowed with weapons fire and burning ships, the tide of the Galactic War began to turn. Word of the Battle of the Nebula spread quickly across the galaxy. For decades, civilizations had watched helplessly as the Vordari Empire expanded, crushing all resistance. Now, the impossible had happened. A combined Earth-Centauri force had defeated a superior Vordari fleet. Representatives from previously neutral species began arriving at Centauri headquarters, seeking meetings with Commander Miller and her officers. Some came to offer alliance, others simply to see these humans who had accomplished what no one thought possible. The Alturians have pledged 12 warships to our cause, Major Davis reported during the daily staff meeting. The Moravian Collective is considering joining as well. Miller nodded, studying the updated galactic map. Colored indicators showed new potential allies spread across previously neutral space. How are the Vordari responding? Lieutenant Howard displayed intercepted communications data. They're pulling forces from their outer territories to reinforce their core systems. They're concerned. They should be, said Engineer Grant. The scattermine deployment was even more effective than we projected. 27 of their ships are still dead in space. Communications specialist Nicole Foster entered the command center, her expression serious. Commander, I've decoded a high-level Vordari transmission. You need to see this immediately. The display changed to show complex Vordari battle plans. Foster had spent weeks learning to read their language patterns. They're planning a massive assault on the Rigel system, she explained. Not just a military target. They're going to destroy the inhabited planets. Ambassador Zinn paled. Rigel has over 15 billion civilians across its colonies, mostly non-combatants. It's retaliation for the nebula, Miller realized. They're sending a message to anyone who might join us. The command center fell silent. Everyone understood the stakes had just risen dramatically. In his private chamber aboard the Vordari command vessel, Supreme Commander Krell reviewed battle footage from the nebula engagement. He replayed the moment when Earth's ships first revealed themselves, studying their movements with obsessive attention. These humans, he hissed to his second-in-command. Where did they come from? How did they develop such tactics? They were considered primitive, Supreme Commander. Our intelligence indicated they had barely achieved space travel. Krell crushed a display panel in his three-fingered hand. Deception. They hid their true capabilities. Study everything we know about Earth. I want to understand how they think, how they fight. The Vordari had dominated through overwhelming force for so long that they had forgotten how to adapt. Now they faced an enemy who used their predictability against them. Back at Centauri headquarters, Miller called an emergency meeting with all Allied representatives. The Vordari expect us to fortify Rigel, she explained. They believe we'll respond defensively, trying to protect those worlds. The Centauri admiral nodded. Of course we must. 15 billion lives. That's exactly what they want, Miller interrupted. They'll commit their main fleet, forcing us into a direct confrontation where their numbers give them the advantage. She turned to the tactical display. Instead, we're going to attack. Confusion spread through the chamber. A Moravian representative stood. Attack, while they prepare to destroy an entire system. Not just any attack, Miller continued. While they gather forces for their Rigel assault, their homeworld defense fleet will be at minimum strength. We'll strike there. The room erupted in shocked voices. No one had ever attempted a direct assault on the Vordari homeworld. It was considered suicide. This is madness, the Centauri admiral protested. Even with our combined forces, we can't hope to breach their home defenses. Miller smiled. That's why it will work. They'll never expect it. She turned to Foster. Send word to Captain Kruss. His reconnaissance team needs to get us detailed scans of their homeworld defenses. As the Allied representatives debated the audacious plan, news arrived that more civilizations were joining their cause. Species long intimidated by Vordari power saw an opportunity to finally fight back. The Vordari still held the advantage in ships and firepower. But Earth had brought something more valuable to the war. Hope. And with each passing day, that hope spread further across the stars. The combined fleet gathered at the edge of Vordari space, the largest multi-species armada ever assembled. Ships of different designs and sizes formed an impressive sight against the backdrop of stars. At the center, Earth vessels took position as the tip of the spear for Operation Thunderstrike. Commander Miller stood on the bridge of the USV Intrepid, surveying the tactical display. Over 200 warships had joined their cause, representing 17 different species. Each had suffered under Vordari expansion. Each had chosen to fight back. Final status report, Miller ordered. All ships report ready, Commander, Major Davis confirmed. The Centauri and Alturian cruisers are in position. Moravian fighters have completed their sensor suites. Miller nodded. And our special package. Chief Engineer Grant looked up from her console. The adaptive quantum displacement system is online. Power levels optimal. This is our biggest test yet. The quantum displacement technology was Earth's most closely guarded secret, a system that could briefly shift matter partially out of normal space, allowing ships to pass through solid objects including planetary shields. It had never been deployed at this scale before. The Vordari still believe we're gathering to defend Rigel, Lieutenant Howard reported. Their main battle fleet is already en route there. Miller opened a channel to all ships. This is Commander Miller. Today we strike at the heart of the Vordari Empire. For too long, they've believed themselves invincible. Today we prove them wrong. She paused, looking at the faces of her crew, humans who had traveled across stars to fight in a war that wasn't originally theirs. Each of your species has suffered under Vordari aggression. Today we end that suffering, not through genocide or revenge, but by breaking their ability to wage war. Remember our objective: disable, don't destroy. We're better than them. The fleet moved forward in perfect coordination, accelerating to FTL speeds. The journey to the Vordari homeworld would take just under 4 hours. In orbit around the desert planet that had given birth to the Vordari Empire, defense platforms and Guardian vessels maintained their routine patrols. The homeworld was considered impregnable, protected by overlapping energy shields and thousands of automated weapon systems. The defense commander received reports of unusual energy readings at the edge of the system, but dismissed them as sensor ghosts. No enemy would dare attack the Vordari homeworld directly. He was wrong. The Allied fleet dropped out of FTL traveled directly in the path of the defense grid. Vordari operators scrambled to battle stations, but they were already seconds behind. Quantum displacement active, Engineer Grant announced on the Intrepid. The human ships glowed with strange blue energy as the experimental system engaged. The impossible happened. Earth vessels passed directly through the supposedly impenetrable planetary shields. Behind them came the Allied ships, following the temporary ruptures created by the displacement field. Defense grid is responding, Howard reported as energy weapons began firing from the planet's surface. 15 seconds until their dreadnoughts launch. Miller turned to Tactical Officer Daniels. Deploy Phase 2. Specialized pods launched from Earth ships, descending toward key military installations on the planet's surface. Inside each pod, Security Chief Eric Martinez and his multi-species ground teams prepared for insertion. Remember your objectives, Martinez told his soldiers over the comm. Take control of their command centers and communication hubs. Minimal casualties. The pods broke through the atmosphere, landing with precision near Vordari military bases. The ground teams deployed, using personal-scale quantum displacement devices to pass through walls and barriers. In orbit, the space battle intensified. Vordari ships fought desperately to protect their homeworld, but the Allied fleet had positioned itself perfectly. Centauri energy weapons disabled Vordari engines, while Earth railguns targeted weapon systems with surgical precision. Their central command complex is secured, Martins reported from the surface. We have control of their planetary defense network. Miller nodded. Shut it down. Across the planet, Vordari weapons went silent. Defense platforms powered down. The shield generators deactivated. Open a channel to their Supreme Command, Miller ordered. The main view screen displayed the face of Supreme Commander Krell. His expression showed something the Vordari rarely experienced. This is Commander Amanda Miller of Earth. Your homeworld is under our control. Your main fleet is too far away to assist. I'm prepared to offer terms. Terms, Krell hissed. Vordari do not surrender. Miller's expression remained calm. This isn't about surrender. It's about ending a war that has cost billions of lives. She paused, including too many of your own people. For the first time in centuries, the Vordari Empire faced the prospect of defeat, and humanity, the newest arrival to the galactic community, was dictating the terms of peace. The Grand Hall of the Vordari Central Command had never hosted peace talks before. For centuries, it had been a place where conquests were planned, not where compromises were made. Now representatives from 23 species sat around a massive circular table, with Commander Miller and Supreme Commander Krell at opposite sides. "The terms are simple," Miller said, her voice calm but firm. "The Vordari Empire will withdraw from all occupied territories. Reparations will be paid to worlds that suffered under your rule. Your military will be reduced to defensive capabilities only." Krell's red eyes narrowed. "You humiliate us with these demands." "No," Miller countered. "We offer you something the Vordari have never given others, a chance to survive defeat. We could have destroyed your homeworld. Instead, we chose a different path." The negotiations continued for days. Earth diplomats worked alongside Centauri ambassadors to craft an agreement that would ensure lasting peace. Some allied species wanted harsher punishments, but Miller insisted on terms that would allow the Vordari to maintain their dignity while removing their ability to threaten others. During a break in the talks, Ambassador Zinn approached Miller in a quiet corridor. "I still don't understand," the Centauri said. "Why show such mercy to an enemy that has shown none?" Miller looked out a viewport at the Vordari homeworld below. "Because the goal was never revenge, it was peace." "But they started this war," Zinn persisted. "Did they?" Miller asked. "We've accessed their historical archives. The conflict began centuries ago when the Centauri accidentally destroyed a Vordari colony world during an experimental weapons test." Zinn stepped back, shocked. "That's not possible. Our histories say." "History is written by survivors," Miller said gently. "Both sides believe they were justified. Both sides committed atrocities. The cycle has to end somewhere." On the final day of negotiations, something unexpected happened. A group of civilian Vordari requested to address the gathering. Their leader, a female named Suri, spoke with passion about generations born knowing only war. "Our leaders told us we fought to protect our species from extinction," she said. "We believed our aggression was necessary for survival. Now we see another way is possible." Her words shifted the atmosphere in the room. Even Commander Krell seemed affected, his rigid posture softening slightly. The treaty was signed that evening. The Galactic War that had raged for decades was officially over. As news spread across the stars, celebrations erupted on countless worlds. Species that had lived in fear of Vordari expansion could finally look to the future with hope. 1 month later, a new council formed. Representatives from all major civilizations gathered on a neutral space station to establish a framework for cooperation and mutual defense. Earth, despite being the youngest member of the galactic community, was given a leadership role. "We didn't earn this position through age or technological advancement," Commander Miller told the first meeting. "We earned it by seeing what others missed, that sometimes the greatest strength comes from working together." The Council established new principles for interstellar relations. Technology sharing, cultural exchange, and a united defense force were all part of the agreement. Earth's unconventional thinking continued to influence policies, with humans encouraging innovation rather than tradition. On the anniversary of the Battle of the Nebula, Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed peace station. Ships from dozens of species moved peacefully through the busy space lanes below. Major Davis joined her at the viewport. "Hard to believe it's only been a year since we answered that distress call." Miller nodded. "Sometimes being late to the party has its advantages. We saw the conflict with fresh eyes. And the surprise we brought." Miller smiled. "Not just our technology or tactics. The real surprise was showing that there's always an alternative to endless war." As she watched the diverse ships passing by, Miller reflected on humanity's journey from an isolated species to a galactic peacekeeper. Earth had arrived late to the war, but perhaps they had arrived exactly when they were needed most.